What's good, YouTube? Carfi King here. So, today, guys, I wanted to talk to you guys about the assassin daggers. No. Here's preference. The reason why, is because I feel like the daggers are an extremely important part of an assassin's kit, an assassin's turn cycle, and really gives them a really strong pitch outlet, for second cycle end of games because assassin games tend to go a lot longer than some other decks go. And since I've been playing and learning assassin, obviously starting with Uziri, and then more into new from this past summer. I really, when I first started with Uziri, I was like, man, I love using this spider's bite because it debuffs, the next attack and then makes my command and conquer plays, or race face or whatever else plays, shakedown plays. It makes those plays a lot more, um, a lot more prevalent, a lot easier for me to execute. Having that one floating resource with the tunic, can allow you to play like a raw CNC or something like that, and or you can save the floating resource for like a spreading plague. And to me, it just feels like the dagger, that hidden value that you get from the dagger, where it just debuffs their block or improves your attack. I feel like a lot of what assassin does is a lot of hidden value things that don't appear on the stat sheet, right? Things that you don't see in the mathematical equation. It's just a lot of hidden value things that add up over time. And like, for instance, during my first RTN run, I ended up getting second place at a 64 player tournament. It was, and I was the only Uziri in the room, only assassin in the room actually. And my whole thing was pitch into, have a healthy blue base, pitch into pitch into my dagger, whatever the appropriate dagger was for the matchup, pitch into that, utilize that, and then have it set up to make it harder for my opponent to block. So that's kind of what, how I looked at it. And again, I personally have put more of an onus on how important our dagger is, kind of like a warrior where, they focus on their weapon, but just like kind of like a guardian, guardians like to have their on hits and things like that. Well, with assassins, we don't have heavy armor, and we don't have like all these weapon buffing things like warriors do, but we do. I felt like we do rely on our daggers, and we do love having our on hits, and these little stingy on hits add up over time. They just don't show up on the stat sheet. So the thing about assassin daggers is that, they do one of really, I think, three things right now from the daggers that we currently have. Obviously, when the hunted comes out, we're waiting on the chaos dagger for chaos arachne. And I feel like that's going to really tie in that hero, and give us a lot of clarity into how the hero is going to play, especially seeing how the hunted seems to be a dagger hero focused set. But all the daggers here do things. They're either going to debuff the opponent's block, they are going to buff our own attack, give us some more offensive autonomy, or they are a annoying recursion piece that can be utilized multiple times throughout a game. So the one I wanted to start out with, I'm gonna start off from the right, is Spider's Bite. Spider's Bite is probably the universal dagger that all assassins run. You never leave home without your Spider's Bite. This dagger is just too good. Plus, I love the artwork on it too. But debuff, most of the time your opponent is blocking with attack action cards, and this, gives it -1 while defending. It has piercing. You pay 2, go again, piercing. So you're gonna again, because you have to pay 2, that's a big reason why I do personally like to have a healthy blue base. Obviously you have your Codex of Frailties, probably some yellow shreds if you're doing like Uziri. And then maybe you put in Spreading Plagues if that's part of your game plan too. I love Spreading Plagues, such a good card. But you have pit. This provides you with like a pitch outlet. And then the -1 while defending. So like I said, it turns their attack action 3 blocks into 2 blocks, meaning that it forces the opponent to give you to give you 3 cards in some scenarios, 2 cards and a piece of armor. Maybe it forces a D-react when they didn't want to D-react. So Spider's Bite definitely, to me, is like the more universal, stronger debuff. Plus, it has Piercing 1, so really it, will tax your opponent if they're trying to block with like Battle Worn Armor or anything like that. Scale Pillar is the other one. Scale Pillar is the other debuffing one, where you give the equipment -1 while defending. I started playing this card more during MST because of Zen, and just being able to poke with poke with Scale Pillar, and then reduce the efficiency. They can just throw their armor in front of something and prevent an on hit, prevent whatever else it is. Scale Pillar came in, but Scale Pillar also to me has become something I didn't a lot of people weren't really high on this back during like my first ever like competitive season, which was last year's Road to National season. But I put it in my deck because I felt like it was a good dagger when I played against like KO. When I played, because KO was huge. A lot of people, Kasai, when she first came out, she was really popular, and Scale Pillar really just was one of those daggers where it's like I could rely on that shutting down, shutting down Dynamo simulators, and KO really getting the full value out of his armor. If you did block with Apex after taking this, well, then your Apex is going to break, and then you don't get that additional value off of it, things like that. So, I mean, Scale Peeler to me is one of the debuffing ones that has really shined for me and really has come in handy. And to me, it was one of the better daggers that I picked up. Orbital class is the dagger where I've actually never used it, and the reason I've never used it because it's non-attack action cards. Sure, like the dagger is good against Kano, but the reason I didn't bring this, I never really brought it, because the Kano matchup was already bad to start out with, and that was really the only hero that was using majority non-attack action cards to block you with. Even now with Rune Blades, you have Verdance and Acilio. They're still, the majority of their cards are attack action cards. So Orbital class to me, on paper, if seems maybe okay, but I just haven't felt like there's like a lot of good non-attacks that people are just throwing and blocking it with to really warrant consecutive usage of this card. So I've never really used this card. Nerve Scalpel is the last debuffing one. It is the one that I probably use the most next to Spider's Bite before I really started keying in on Scale Peeler. Now, what Nerve Scalpel is that it does reduce -1 for reaction cards. This can come in handy, like if your opponent wants to, like if you're throwing like if you want to throw a Leave No Witness, you can throw, pitch a blue, pitch a yellow, throw Nerve Scalpel for 1 hit, and then you throw the Leave No Witness. Well, Leave No Witness, well, now they can't just throw a Sync Blow or Fate Foreseen to cover that up. They have to give you, 3 blocks, or a 3 block and a piece of armor. So I think Nerve Scalpel does have its place where just depending on what you're throwing at them. Like even with Uziri, if you're throwing a 2 for 6, a lot of times your opponent's still going to probably just put 2 attack action cards in front of it, or they'll try to do like an attack action card for 3 and then like a D react for 4 and then cover up 7. But if you debuff the D react to 6, and it still blocks like the shakedown and whatnot. But this card definitely has seen a lot of usage. I just have taken it out of my deck because, I don't feel like people do have those reactions, those 0 for 4 reactions, but not all the time. And Nerve Scalpel just feels a lot more niche than I used to think it was, and I feel like the way that some heroes have a decent amount of armor nowadays, I feel like I definitely get a lot more mileage out of Scale Peeler than I would Nerve Scalpel. But those were the 4 daggers that we have in terms of debuffing the opponent. We then got Graven Call and Heavy Hitters, and Graven Call to me was an extremely interesting dagger. It was a dagger that got me interested in Arachne Huntsman, but also just utilizing silver. So this is our recursion dagger. So it's still a regular dagger that has piercing. Two for two cost, one damage to piercing. But um, if you use this and flick knives, you can flick this, destroy two silver, equipped it with a +1 counter. So now it's coming at you for now it's going to be hitting the opponent for 2 every time you pitch into it. So like the damage of Graven Call is something that like, ooh, you're going to get a lot of value out of this dagger when you flick it and then bring it back, right? The thing is that this card to me is really only good in a deck that's focused around contracts. You Every other like assassin build and iteration, you generate silver off of Leave No Witness or Surgical Extraction. So you have a total of maybe six cards that allow you to generate silver. And if you're playing Black Tech Whisperers, then your silver is used for that. Otherwise, silver is a resource that you're not really using. But again, you're not generating silver at a rate high enough that this card is really good and really like useful to a degree. So if you're playing a contract focused build with like Eradicate and Annihilate the Arms and things like that, I think Graven Call is definitely a good secondary dagger to utilize with the flick knives and then bring it back and have an outlet for your silver. But unless you have more ways to generate silver, I personally just don't think Graven Call has been that good. But if they ever decide to focus on contracts with silver generation, sure. And then you have Mistblade. So Mistblade is the last of the daggers. This one was the first dagger I feel like where even in my new deck now I'm running double Mistblade and I'm not running the debuffing daggers anymore. This dagger is extremely strong. It is a 2-for-1 go again. It doesn't have piercing, but your next blue attack gets +1 and go again. I mean, the +1 and go again really is the star of this card. I mean, it makes in a deck you're running anywhere between like 30 plus blues in. This card just makes a world of a difference. The opponent really hates taking this card because that makes your levels of enlightenment. My goodness, it makes your levels of enlightenment so much better. It gives power go again to like your agony, to your prognosis, to your other stealth cards with on hits that can set up something else. Just being able to do that +1 and go again is ridiculous. You can combine this with like Siren's Call. If your opponent does end up putting a card in front of your Mistblade, you can like Siren's Call and rip out another card from their hand. And then you maybe can throw another Mistblade because you're definitely running a majority blues, and then go on from there. It's really a aggressive offensive dagger, and it's a card where at first it was like kind of but the more that new has been flashed up, the more games you play, the more you understand the hero, the more you understand that this card is extremely, extremely good. And instead of debuffing it and putting on your opponent's ability to block, I'm just going to, be like, hey, here, you need to block this, or else I'm going to have a pretty strong offensive turn. But that's what the daggers we have for now are. Again, personally, Spider's Bite generally comes into every game I play. Same with Scale Peeler. But if I'm playing new, then I've been bringing double Mistblade because the Mistblade is just really strong. But yeah, that's the daggers we have. Again, when we get the Chaos Dagger, I'll make a video on the Chaos Dagger and kind of like what we could do with that. But that's the video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you for the next assassin video tomorrow.